Next item on the agenda is a budget review for information technology. Jako, thank you, and Steve, of course.
I will do my normal introduction. I believe I was told that everybody has a separate booklet this year with the budget, so we don't...
Before we do it, I need to take a motion to receive
numbers.
and file the report, and then we'll take questions and hear the presentation. So we've got Commissioner Lucido making the motion to receive and file, and we have Commissioner Toko supporting it. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, so the budget for the IT department can be found on page C45 of the budget. The total budget, is everybody with me before I start? Okay. So the total budget for IT being recommended for 2018 is $8.3 million. The amended budget for 2017 is $7.9 million. That's an increase of about $388,000. Jako is requested and is being recommended for the addition of one position in his department, a database administrator, at the cost of about $104,000. The contract services line, you'll notice, increased about $135,000. It should be noted that $54,000 of that increase is actually being transferred in from the budgets of the district courts for the support of their Quadtrans system. So that's just a shift between departments. So the true increase was about a 2.5% increase, or $81,000 in that particular line item. And Jako can talk about what's going on in that line item. The other line items are fairly straightforward and consistent with prior years. Again, I think the big change here is the addition of a database administrator, which Jako requested at least for the last two budget cycles, maybe three. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jako.
Okay, thank you. Jako?
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this budget with you. I kind of mixed the two budgets a little bit, my operational budget as well as my capital portion of the budget, and that's just to give you a brief overview of what we did this year. As far as the operational general fund budget goes, we really did not veer much from the previous year's budget, but like Steve just mentioned, there's a few additions. Regarding the capital budget, we really continue to improve this process. As you saw tonight, discussions around this. There's a lot of challenges around this to make this a budget. And I know last year when I was in front of the commission, questions came up about this being a wish list of things that we want to do. And I think tonight, really it's a plan that's out there with, budgets for the next 5 years or items for the next 5 years that we're trying to address. And obviously prioritization is a big problem for us. So one of the things we did put on the list this year, and I did send a list of the projects and the priorities at least per department, so you can see how that's prioritized. So that's something we did this year. Ultimately we would like to prioritize these budgets across the board, but you can imagine that's a pretty involved process, and we will have to have all the stakeholders around the table. We're also working with finance to incorporate for the next budget cycle a checklist of items that would either qualify or disqualify an item to be put on the budget. Currently we do a little bit of that. It's not a very formal process. When my client liaisons go out to the different departments, they do that and they have specific instructions around that. But if we can get a list that everybody agrees on, and then on that list obviously would be things like whether an item is mandated and so forth, and there's many categories that you can put on there. But we'll work with finance and get that ready before the next budget cycle. In the general fund, we've requested, this position that Steve talked about, a database administrator. We've submitted for that for the last 3 years. This is the 4th year that we've requested. This position was let go or given up in 2008 when, the economy was, turning downwards, and it was at the same time the financial system was moved into the cloud, and we didn't have to take care of the budget side of the database side of things. We have looked at maybe bringing that system back in-house because we believe we can do that cheaper by doing that, but this is one position, for instance, we will need for that. We've also done a lot of database work. Overall in the county, we have almost 300 databases. And one of the jobs that a database administrator has is to make sure that our databases are being maintained properly, and that things run, things work, but databases can slow down your environment quite a bit. So that's just one of the many functions that a person like that would do. We've also, and I know there's been questions in the past, we did, for instance, the study for the police department a few years ago about jail population and so forth, and it comes down to big data and data analytics, and this would be a baseline start for us, for somebody that can dedicate, their time to databases and also eventually start building up that area of our business, because data analytics is something that is going to happen, and it is, I think, very important for the future to start, making use of that. Cybersecurity obviously is a big thing. Everybody talks about that, and every single thing we do touch on cybersecurity. We got a new position last year for a security administrator, Stephen Monato, and Stephen has done a great job, so far. And I would actually like to, at some point in the future, bring Stephen to this committee so he can explain to you what we've done, with money allocated to cybersecurity over the past year and a half. And you can also see how our position has improved. I think it's very important. Everybody tells you it's not a matter of if you're going to be attacked. It's just, when. And there's so many things happening that, just very important part of our business. The budgets that we did, it aligns with the short-term goals that I submitted in the BOC supplement, as well as our long-term goals. We're in the process of strategic planning, which I talked about last time when I was in front of you. The process is going a little bit slower than what we thought, but on the other hand, it's a very good exercise for us because we're really learning a lot about our business and how things work and how we should think about our future and align ourselves. So that we anticipate of having completed this financial year, 2017, and will obviously help us to have a better outlook when it comes to our 5-year capital plan, as well as just our general fund items in general.
Okay, thank you. I have to have a couple quick questions. One, you mentioned that bringing some of the database administration back in-house, you believe that could be done less expensively in-house?
Yes.
Do you know, or have you done any sort of guesstimate as to how much it would actually save per year if it was brought in-house?
The previous time, when we outsourced this, it was a very different scenario because we were on a different database, an Oracle database. We made a significant change since then and are really moving all the county databases to SQL, which is Oracle is more robust, but it's used by banks and places like that, and very, very expensive solution. By going to SQL on all our databases, it really makes it much easier for us, as well as less cost to maintain it, because we have quite a bit of in-house expertise to maintain the back end of those databases, and then a database administrator would be the person that do all the
Right, but how much
maintenance and
less
so on.
cost?
I don't have the exact numbers for you. I actually tried before this to get numbers from the company where it's outsourced at the moment, and you can imagine that it's going to be a little tricky to get that information.
How do you know
from
it'll be
them.
less cost then?
But I would say it would be significantly less than what we pay the company currently.
Okay.
I just don't have that number for you today.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at
And that's not the only thing. I mean, I'm talking about that as one of the benefits.
Right.
The other
I'm wondering what the
benefits
cost is compared to the hiring of a new database, administrator. Would we save $50,000 a year, but be spending $77,000 a year or something along those lines? The other question, I just had a quick question. This is on, not specific to this one individual, but on looking at the salary range minimum and maximums. This might be more for, Steve, but are those just salaries, or are those the total cost to the county in salary, benefits, and so forth?
You're talking back in the appendix or the addendum?
Well, under on one of the pages of the stuff we have, I have it identified as page 171, which is the position schedule by department for the IT department, I believe. No, by this page here, which is identified on my thing as page 171.
Yeah, position scheduled by department, those are the minimum and maximums of the base salary only.
Okay, so the cost of would actually be larger when you factor in
Correct.
healthcare
The
and
cost of this position is around $77,800. That was in one of those pages of my presentation.
I see that under the. Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, thinking of a different position. It's $104,117
Okay.
with all the benefit rolls up. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about $100,000 more, but we're not certain exactly what it would save on that one element. But you're saying this person would do more than just that in housing that.
That would be one of the items. Like I mentioned, we have many databases, and we've taken on a lot of new systems in the county, and those systems are in need of database administration.
So if we were then to hire this new person, what area of the budget should we reduce spending because we're saving money by bringing them in?
Well, like I said, this is something we gave up. I also, in my estimation, I don't think there's any county with our size, with that amount of databases today, that work without a database administrator.
I believe you guys are very efficient. I'm just curious if we're going to save money, though, by hiring this person. We'll spend 100 and some thousand, but we should save money, therefore we can lower spending at some other part of that department budget because of the money we're saving.
I just give you the one area where we can possibly save money, but the ROI in this case, for us as IT, is more of a maintenance item than it is.
But a few minutes ago,
financial.
saving a very substantial amount of money,
Yeah.
you said. So
I absolutely, but I cannot give you that number.
do you think it'll be more than 100,000?
I don't think it'll be more than 100,000, but
Okay.
probably in a range of about $50,000, $60,000.
I see.
That's my guess.
Okay, well, that gives me some perspective on the issue. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Bob's not on here. All right. Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Jako, thanks for coming here and presenting tonight. I have a couple of questions. And, just back to Commissioner Drolette's comments, your ROI is really based around being more efficient and getting, that. But we're here kind of looking at a budget. And if you're saying that,
That's correct.
this guy can actually save money, if we don't do something or look at maybe reducing something, then that money just stays there and then gets spent on something else, which of course you would probably need, but maybe want rather than need. I don't know. So I'm just, we are kind of a little bit we're looking at things, for the good of the county, but on a little different angles here. So let me ask you a question about overtime wages, and I appreciate you kind of adding some of the comments in early on these things rather than waiting for us to ask. There's a $50,000 increase in requested in overtime wages, and it says it's for Windows 10 upgrade in 2018, but it's projected out for 19 and 20. So if it's just to get the upgrade in 2018, why are we carrying it on? And maybe Steve could answer that, or you could, or is this an upgrade that's going to continue on, that we need that $50,000 in?
I saw that, and that is truly, in my, guesstimate, a miscommunication between me and Mr. Steitler that I talked to.
Okay.
My focus is specifically on 2018.
Okay.
Because we have a dire need. We're going to upgrade the whole county next year to 2010,
Okay.
which means that most of my work is going to take, or my technicians' work for that is going to take place after hours.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And under contract services, we amended 2017 to 200,000. And if I remember right, in 2016 when we were looking at it, you were looking at that new position, the security administrator, and I believe that we might have lowered down your contract services by 80,000 to then kind of hire the new contract services or the security administrator. Then now we're jacking it back up $80,000, which, really isn't I was under the impression we were kind of saving here to pay for this person's salary, so to speak, or close, and now we're asking for it back.
Yeah, the position that it was for was the business system administrator, on-base administrator for last year's, that was the position what it was asked for. At the time that we had that discussion, and I'm not talking about the board, I'm talking about my discussions with finance. At the time that discussion took place, I offered up $80,000 for 2017 to fund that position for 2017, with the understanding that I will get my $80,000 back. I also, at the end of last year's board meeting, there was a bunch of questions that I received from Crystal that different commissioners asked. That was one of the questions, and my response to that was exactly that I would like to have that money back in the budget, for this year. I also want to mention that in our conversation last year, one of the commissioners asked me, and we were on the topic of why are we not, contracting more services if we have such a difficulty completing our projects in a specific year. And, obviously that's important to us. That contracting money is very important to us to be able to fulfill our obligations.
Okay. Well, and you, I'm sure you had that discussion with Steve, and I don't doubt that you gave us that response, but I remember it, which doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but as being kind of we need a position, this is kind of how we can help fund it, and it wasn't, in my eyes, wasn't for 1 year, and then we have to find, basically, so now we're going up 80,000 plus the person's salary that we brought on last year that we have to tackle somehow, so just
I understand.
something that jumped out at me. But thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the $54,000 addition for the district court, what is the quadrant agreement?
Quatran is, our courts, our circuit courts, uses a application or a case management system called CourtView, and that's where they enter all their case data and so forth, and where the judges obviously get their information from and enter into. The system used by the district courts, specifically Romeo and New Baltimore, is called Quatran. It's a hosted system, and that hosted system has been paid for at some point in time by the courts. Last year, we renegotiated the whole contract with them, for an additional term, and at that time, that was put into IT's budget, just the maintenance portion of it, because traditionally we pay the maintenance of the different systems. There is, there's a bill that we split out from that, which is their operational cost, on an ongoing basis, things like stamps, and there's all sorts of fees that the district courts themselves still pay.
So this
That is maintenance for the two courts to use that system.
So this is already a contract that's in place? and
That's
We're
correct.
already on the hook for that?
Yep.
And the district court doesn't contribute anything towards that?
The district court at this point in time just pay the fees on a monthly basis that they consume, and I cannot tell you exactly what that is.
They pay the fees for this software?
Not for the software. They pay the fees of everything they consume, and I'm just using one simple one. It's stamps, but there's a lot of things. I think their bill is around about $1,400–1,500 a month per district court. But the actual maintenance for the use of the application, we pay that from IT.
And is that by statute, or is that by just history, or what is?
It was what was decided. I've been here 13 years, and they've been on that system this whole time. And that's the system they use. We unfortunately, in the court system, we have probably about four different systems we have to deal with.
So is it possible that they could have been added to our court view system and then utilize the same systems that the circuit court uses, so that we didn't have additional expense for them to have a different system?
It is possible for them to be added to that system, absolutely.
And would it have been at the same price as this? I mean, I guess now it's a little.
That I cannot tell you. It has to be, obviously quoted out, but I would say probably very similar.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to mention, too, I appreciate your notes that you attached to it. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other commissioners, we will now vote on the receiving and filing of the report. Okay, thank you. The motion has passed.